Hello everyone, it's Alicia Miller. Welcome. For those of you who don't know me, I am the founder of Core Emotional Healing. And today I'm going to be talking about probably my favorite topic and my favorite thing that I teach in my Core Emotional Healing process. So this video comes with a trigger warning because I'm going to be talking about triggers. I'm going to be talking about the source of triggers, and you may get triggered. So don't worry, I'm here to help you. So if you get triggered, please go ahead and let me know what triggers you if you're listening to this recording. And wherever you're listening to it, you can comment or send me kind of what triggers you, and I can help point you in the right direction. So triggers are so valuable, and that's why I'm doing this video. I basically healed myself from all of my chronic problems. So I had chronic digestive problems, I had eating disorders, emotional eating, and relationship patterns that were problems. And that caused me a lot of suffering, and I healed them all through becoming aware of my triggers and then addressing them. So I'm doing this to help you see triggers in a different light so you can be empowered with your triggers. And if you're watching me live, go ahead and say hi, and if you have any questions about triggers or any comments about triggers, please let me know. So I was just introducing the topic, and I'm really passionate about helping everyone stay empowered with not only, hey Stephanie, your triggers, but your symptoms. So a lot of you already know my tagline is your symptoms are a gift, and I also say your triggers are a gift. So these two things, chronic physical symptoms and emotional triggers, are a gift because they help us and they point to what is in our unconscious that we're not aware of. And so as you heal yourself, and say you're healing from physical symptoms, you may find that your emotional triggers and the source of them both point to the same root cause. And once you address both of them, then not only are your physical symptoms gone, but your trigger has shifted you into a new direction. So once you properly address the trigger, you then all of a sudden have healed something from the past, or you set a boundary, or you stand up for yourself. So you're living in a more empowered place, but you're also breaking patterns, and you may also heal some relationships as well. So triggers, as I said in the beginning, have healed me from most all of my problems. So once I learned how to listen to my triggers and how to respond to them, like understand what is being triggered or what my trigger is telling me, then I was able to heal a lot of my chronic problems. But I also am using triggers on an ongoing basis personally to continue to heal from the past, and also the things that maybe I'm not aware of in the present that is in my unconscious. And so they're always pointing to what we need. So triggers are not outside of us. Triggers are coming from within us, and that's valuable information. So if you're here, hi everyone who just joined, feel free to say hi and write anything about what may be triggering you or what your common triggers are, and I can help you if you'd like today. Or you can just, let's see, what do you do when toxic people you've released from your life come back and cause a trigger? So it depends on in what way are they coming back into your life, or if you've allowed them back into your life. And maybe, so I'll give examples unless you want to clarify, Stephanie, but I'm just going to talk about hypotheticals at this point. So say you release someone toxic from your life, and then they're back in your life. It may be triggering your own personal boundary that you broke by allowing them, and I'm not saying that you're doing that, or say you haven't learned how to stand up for how you feel with them, and that may also be triggering something for you. Okay, my ex who I've been in contact with because of my son. Yes, that is a tricky situation. So because you have to be in contact with him because you share custody, see what is being triggered, and often it's a behavior that caused you to most likely divorce him and choose something healthier. So you can recognize the behavior. And so I want to clarify right now the difference between triggers and what I'm talking about that point us to take action versus something that you feel like disturbed by, annoyed by. So life does cause many things that are not triggers that kind of upset us. So the difference between a trigger and just a annoyance, or someone doing something that like you don't agree with, that's kind of hurtful. So you can recognize a trigger, and the difference between a trigger is you kind of get altered when you're triggered. So you're altered in a negative way. So you may have a very strong anger reaction and say things you wouldn't normally say. You may burst out in tears. You may hang up the phone. You may walk away. Sometimes walking away is good if they're disrespecting you, but so that's kind of to recognize when you're triggered. You can also go into a freeze response where you don't even know what to say because you're triggered. And so I think I covered most of them. So it's just a very strong, disproportional reaction to what is actually happening in the present moment, or what was said to you, or what the situation is. And if you're not able to kind of just be in your power at that point, and you yell, or you don't know like what to do because you're just checked out, maybe that's a trigger. So what is being triggered can be something that reminds you of something, or an event or something that happened to you in the past where you felt the same way. I've healed from so many triggers over the last 7 years once I learned how to work with this process, from family members, from exes, from even hearing about my ex-husband. I thought I had done a lot of healing work already around him, and I was doing a workshop about a year or so ago, and someone had mentioned his name, and I actually became irritated all night, not really aware at that point that I was triggered, but I obviously was altered because I was just in a funk all night. And then I actually had a dream about him that night that showed me that I still had more emotional healing to do from a situation that I was in that hurt me a lot with him. So triggers are such a gift because healing is layers, and it unfolds over many, many, many years. And so we may get triggered because something is up for us that is unhealed, unfelt, that wants to be addressed. And so maybe, going back to Stephanie, if your ex triggers you to where you feel altered, it could be triggering something not only from him that you still need to feel and process, but also from maybe someone like growing up, one of your parents treated you that same way. And there could be, and I use triggers as a part of my core emotional healing process and how to heal your wounded inner child. So it's always so valuable, and it's the information that we need to stay empowered with our healing process and to know what we need to give ourselves to heal our inner child, but also to just create greater safety sometimes for ourselves, and where we feel more respected and loved by ourselves through our triggers. Because Triggers can also help us stand up for how we feel in the present and in the past, and also create boundaries. So say someone's getting triggered by people that are disrespecting them, and so then you have the choice to remove yourself from that situation, or stand up for yourself. And so you staying empowered with your triggers is knowing how to address them. And it is something that I teach, and I actually have an online workshop coming up June 13th. And you can, I'll share the link below. It's on my website under live online workshop. So you can share your triggers with me, and I will help you with your process on how to address your triggers in that live workshop. And even if you can't attend live, you can send me your examples, what's happening for you in your life. Personally, I connected before I learned the trigger process, I connected my relationship triggers. It typically comes in relationship with other people. People trigger you, and again, if you're triggered, that's valuable information for you to work with. It's not always that the person's doing something to you or making you feel that way. They are triggering something in you, and it could have nothing to do with them. And I'll go over some of those examples of just how I trigger people sometimes. So when I connected it, I was in a relationship that was triggering a lot of stuff for me, and I just continued to stay in the trigger, and I was really feeling hurt a lot. And then my physical symptoms, so my chronic digestive problems and bloating and candida, yeast infections that I thought I had healed from, came back. And so I was, at that point, it was obvious to me that there was a connection between my physical symptoms and my emotional triggers and my relationship pattern, because I found myself in a similar relationship pattern that I, at that point, still hadn't fully healed from. So those are the three things that I always say that can help you stay empowered, is to recognize when you're triggered, recognize when you have chronic symptoms or symptoms flaring up, or if you're in a pattern, and it can be all three, and it can just be one too. So if you find yourself getting triggered by the same person or a similar trigger, there's something for you to address. If you find yourself continuing to repeat patterns, there's something for you to address. And if you just can't address physical symptoms, that also can point all to the same root cause. I just had a client actually in my private Facebook group this week, unrelated to this Facebook Live, share that she had an itchy patch on her arm, and no matter what she ate or supplements she took or anything that she put on it, it didn't go away. And she's been on the medical medium protocol. If you don't know that, it's a very cleansing, clean diet, mostly fruits and vegetables and kind of raw. And we had a session recently, and I helped her get to the root cause of her two main triggers in her relationship. And after she worked with it, she said the itchy patch went away. And this is something that's very common with all of my clients, is that we work with emotional triggers that tend to also be creating physical symptoms that haven't been addressed by physical treatments. So back to triggers. I am an expert at triggers because of my own healing journey and working with triggers, and then after I healed my chronic problems, I then continue, and I still continue to work with my triggers. And my triggers, like I said, have healed me from so many things, from dysfunctional relationships, including my family. My family and I, we have healed so much from working with the dysfunction and what was being triggered and what needed to be addressed from my past, but also how we were interacting in the present moment. So if you're having any family triggers, like for no reason, that can also be a sign that it's coming from something unresolved in your past. if, you know, a family member interacts with you, or they just call you and you feel triggered. If you just see their name on the phone and you feel triggered, you may, that is directly related to something that is being triggered from your past. So sometimes it can be obvious, sometimes not. But so I've been working with it, and my triggers happen, you know, just many different ways. So I may get triggered. Well, Doug and I, so Doug is my husband, if you don't know, we have healed from so much of our childhood that we weren't aware that still needed to be addressed through our relationship. So we were bringing up a lot of deep unconscious stuff that helped us heal and then relate differently with each other. And we hardly have any triggers at all anymore, where we were getting triggered almost on a daily basis in the first year. Or we would have blow up fights once a week. And he helped me just with, you know, just little things that he would say that he were meaningless, you know, he didn't mean anything by them, but would trigger my own insecurities or how I felt about myself. So I also helped bring up a lot within him. These triggers are so valuable, as I'm going to continue to say. And then, you know, on an ongoing basis, triggers can just be, I mean, there's so many triggers on Facebook. Being on Facebook is triggering. I mean, just seeing other people interacting and feeling left out, or seeing like you weren't invited to something, or why aren't people liking your posts, and why aren't people interacting with me anymore? Hey, honey. Yay, we got over our triggers, the really painful ones. So yeah, Facebook, oh my gosh. Even like seeing this video, some people can just get triggered by seeing people talking because they're not confident in putting themselves out there. Or say there's, say you're an entrepreneur and you really want to be speaking about like what you do and putting yourself out there, and you're not doing it. So a trigger could be seeing someone else doing it. So triggers can also just be like parts of yourself that want your attention, that's getting triggered through your perception of what's happening on Facebook or in life. And so it gives you the opportunity to address what wants your attention. And so it could be your wounded inner child who felt rejected. It could also be your wounded inner child who felt ignored, or it also could be how you feel about yourself. Again, going back to your wounded inner child, it could be about that you don't feel good enough or pretty or, you know, handsome, and you might get jealous seeing someone else because you're denying that within yourself. So those are examples of shadow projections. So triggers can be from, like I said, something that wants to be felt and expressed from the past. It can also be an aspect of you that you may be denying or judging, rejecting within yourself that you see in someone else. And it can be alerting you that you need to stand up for yourself. So it can also be for you to accept, and it can also be for you to accept other people. And so maybe you keep getting judged about these little things that people do, and that can point to how you may be judging yourself for not being perfect, or like I said, for not speaking your truth, or could be all kinds of things. Let me just have a sip of water. So I've been teaching this core emotional healing process and working with triggers, and it's been amazing to see my clients stay empowered with their triggers and actually, you know, change the situation or shift it or heal a physical symptom, or all of a sudden their dynamics with family or friends shift because they addressed it within themselves. So it's it's such an important thing to learn. And I've been teaching the core emotional healing process over the last 3 years through online group programs that I just recently stopped doing in the beginning of this year. And I also have run 6 retreats with Janet Raftis, who helped me connect the dots when I got triggered in my relationships and my physical symptoms flared up. And so we do retreats and help people work through the initial stage of the core emotional healing process. And I teach about triggers during the retreats as well. And so what happens on retreats, so I was sharing about, like, I've been working with triggers for a long time and teaching it. And I also have been working with people projecting and getting triggered. Yeah, Sacred Emotion Retreat in Costa Rica, woo! And then Doug and I also, so I see Doug right above Janet, all of us do retreats together. So Doug, my husband, does dream interpretation on Janet and I's Sacred Emotion Retreat. And Doug and I have our own core emotional experiential therapy retreat as well in Costa Rica. We just did one in Thailand in December. So we work with triggers. We work with what's being kind of what information is coming up for each person, and triggers is often a part of that. And it was so interesting in one retreat in Thailand, someone actually experienced something that they were journaling about, and it actually happened on the resort where there was a violation with her in her room, and it was exactly the stuff that she was journaling about that was unresolved. And so stuff like this happens all the time, where things just are like, see, there you go. And so I would say trust life and trust how life is supporting you. And a part of that is paying attention to what is happening and what that means for you. So it takes you out of life is happening to you, or feeling victimized by other people or situations, to feeling empowered with the information that is present for you. So I was talking about the work that I've been doing for the past 3 years. I ran 8 different online group programs and 7 group retreats. So there's a lot of group activity. And I tend to trigger the most people. So I wanted to talk about that because I'm used to it. And it was interesting because I had I was gonna just see, oh yeah, I had a astrology reading by Natha and one of our friends, and recently this year, beginning of this year, and the first thing she said, I wanted to look at, I had it written down. The first thing she said to me on the astrology reading was that people are triggered by you because there's an illusion. People project onto me who they think I am, and it's hard for them to see me clearly because of the makeup of my planets and everything. I'm mostly Pisces and very watery, and so like emotional, and I also help people be more present in their emotions. And oftentimes when you start to go into your emotional wounds that have been repressed and denied and protected your whole life, and my job is to help you go there and to feel it, process it, and release it, so you can heal and move on from it. So when I'm helping you do that, one way we protect ourselves is to project our pain onto other people. So I have gotten used to people being triggered by me, and so I mostly am okay with it. I've had some painful periods at times. But people tend to get triggered if you, like, I speak my truth, and I also tell them the truth. And if they're not ready to hear it, And especially if I'm doing videos online and on YouTube and Facebook, and I'm saying something that someone's not ready to see in themselves, they may project onto me and say that they call me names sometimes, they attack me. So all kinds of things can happen. But I also have been doing videos for a very long time since I lived in Thailand. I have just reported on my journey. I haven't held back on the information that I say. So I am very giving in terms of what I'm learning, and I share it with other people. And so some people may get triggered because they feel insecure about sharing themselves, and they may say that I am all that, or I'm narcissistic, or yes, Doug says, and many people come back later and thank me after I trigger them. So me triggering them is a gift, of course. So as long as you're going into your pain and then you can reflect on it eventually, then you'll receive the gift from it. And then they do say, I'm sorry that I projected onto you. But yeah, and so so that's, again, like, catch yourself if you're being triggered by someone, and then you can ask yourself, like, am I doing this, or am I needing to do this and I don't want to do that, or if I'm judging myself for doing something like that. It can be great information for you. Some people get triggered about how I look, or I'm tall. I mean, there's all kinds of things. So it's a great way for anyone who feels like they need to be nice all the time, or good, or quiet. They may get triggered by me because I'm kind of strong, and I will speak my truth, which is not always what people want to hear. So my job is not about making sure that people like me, but to make sure I help people. And that's sometimes not always what they want. So I'm used to these triggers. I also get a lot of marketing triggers. So I want to talk about that because this happens a lot. So in this day and age, the way we reach people with what we do, and what we do is all about helping people. So, and especially in the healing profession, I don't know any healer that's doing this for money. If anything, healers are like artists and often starving and struggling. So we're doing this because we have experienced something. Oftentimes we're wounded healers. We come in with gifts, and then we work our butts off to try to reach the people that we're meant to work with. And so in this day and age with marketing, the way we market is through email newsletters, social media, maybe doing talks and things like that. But the way we connect to people now is through social media. So if you are getting triggered by seeing people talk about themselves, if they're in business for themselves and trying to put out their message and reach people who need their services, just know that that's how we help people. So I see people, even people who have worked with me or subscribed to my newsletters, get triggered by my newsletters because I'm offering a new service or a new online workshop. I changed the way I was doing business. I have a retreat coming up. So I'm always creating new services and programs to help people. So everything I do is to help people. Now, some people have been triggered in saying that have predatory, like I'm a predator, that I just am trying to take advantage of them, and that I'm trying to say that they keep needing more and more because I'm trying to make money. I've had someone on Facebook recently calling me an evil snake oil salesman because I talked about the emotional cause of symptoms. And I've had a family member attack me on Facebook because I talked about the same. So that's an example of a projection onto me of something they don't want to hear because they're not ready to hear it. So then they call me names or attack me. The trigger with getting email newsletters, I've had this multiple times with some clients where they view it. It's all about your perception, and your perception's often formed from childhood. So maybe in childhood, it was all about your parents, or someone did use you or take advantage of you, or they had predatory energy where they were kind of like an energy vampire, and you were always there for them. So then that forms your perception and your beliefs about the world. So instead of the world being supportive, you think the world is trying to take advantage of you, and you can't trust people. So that's where that comes from. And so I love when people market. I love hearing what people are doing. I love seeing what products people have. I absolutely love it because I'm viewing life as supporting me. And I was like, wow, all of these things are available whenever I need them. And I'll know, I'll know what I'll need when I need it. And until, if I don't need it right now, that's where you can stay empowered, instead of feeling triggered because someone keeps marketing themselves. The empowered view would be to say, like, to ignore the email or ignore a Facebook post or an event. Like, I have a ton of people I subscribe to because I have worked with them at one point, and I may, use them eventually, but I like to just see what they're doing, and I'm like, awesome, they're doing great. And, I don't need to read the email when I don't want to. I pretty much ignore most of my emails unless something catches my eye. So, anyway, I also, I'm just going to touch also on, let me see. How do you become aware of triggers? Yeah, I did cover that in the beginning, Gemma, so go ahead and watch the video from the beginning. I'm going to probably close it up shortly, but I'd love to hear from anyone else with any other questions. I talked about how to know and when you're triggered, and then some of the sources of triggers. I am doing a whole live online workshop June 13th, and triggers are a gift and how to work with them on an ongoing basis. And I did cover in the beginning how they've been the most valuable thing. That awareness has been the most valuable thing that I have used to heal myself from pretty much everything that was causing problems in my life, and I continue to use it as well. So I continue to be aware of my triggers to give myself what I need or to address something from my past. And I can't say enough about them. I just want to see if there's anything else I wanted to cover. Common triggers are, like I said, I began talking about family members. The workshop is a gift of support. Thank you, Janet. The workshop, I think I trigger people as well. Yeah, you're doing them a favor, but it is hard, Gemma, to deal with it. It's really, really hard for people to project constantly on you. And I've had that in my relationship, and like I said, with clients and everything. And it really helps you grow strong within yourself, and to know like what you did or what you said is your truth, and that's up to them if they want to hear it or not. It does hurt. It triggers, rejection sometimes. It triggers being misunderstood, and that can also lead back to addressing when you were misunderstood and rejected as a child. So the online workshops that I do, you get to keep the recordings. I do a presentation, a slideshow, and I give you handouts, and they're only $100. I also process whatever's up for you as well. And then you get to keep it, and you get to reference it. And so the process to work with triggers, like I said, you will use for the rest of your life. It's an ongoing process of like self-awareness, setting boundaries, healing from your past, creating new patterns and relationship, in the way you relate to people, what you allow with how people treat you. So it's awesome. Other common triggers are like not being respected, being ignored, when someone rejects what you have to say, when people don't see your value, flaky, unreliable people, Trump. Speaking of Trump trigger, ever since Trump started running for president, it's been like for me, and I know he's doing some bad things, it's been like a comedy show, because I have healed from narcissistic abuse from my father and past relationships. And so I just see him and it just makes me laugh. And sometimes I'm just like, oh, but I don't get triggered. And I see some people who get like, well, I see two different other reactions. Some people who are really into him maybe still haven't seen their own past narcissistic abuse. And then some people who get really angry with him may still have to heal from people who were like him that treated them in similar ways. Okay. Road rage, I see that. I don't have road rage, but I did in the past, and I know a lot of people do, and you know that is a trigger that is not about what's actually happening. And comments about how you look. I've healed so much from that. I've had eating disorders and body image disorders, and so I was always really super conscious of my body. I was my nickname as a child is Ellie, and some of my family calls me Ellie Belly, or they used to, and I had like a little belly most of my life, and bloating and stuff like that. So I was really self-conscious of my belly. There was a lot of shame in my body that was stored in my belly. And I just had shame like with anyone touching me on my belly. I had a lot of triggers if anyone said that I wasn't skinny, or maybe indicated that I gained weight. There was a trigger I'll share with you. When Doug and I first got together, I was at my kind of final stages of healing from my body image disorder. I had already healed from my eating disorders and so many other things right before that. And so one time I was looking at t-shirts, and Doug said, well, what are you, a large? And I'm actually a small. I'm 6 feet tall, but I have kind of just like a smaller shoulders, I guess, where I fit into it, like small fits me best. And I got so triggered. And so that's an example of how to recognize when you're triggered. Because if I wasn't triggered, I would have just said, no, I'm a small because of this and this. But instead, I was like, you don't know how to talk to women. And I like got angry and got in this, I think, a fight. It wasn't like a short fight either. So anyway, now that was like 4 years ago. And now Doug is like, whatever, fatty, and so he like calls me names on purpose just to test if like I've healed from it all. So like nowadays we call each other all kinds of things, and we just like laugh, and it's like endearing and it's fun. So anyway, I think that's oh, there's one other thing I wanted to share. The Me Too movement was really triggering. It still is. Obviously, I'm very sensitive to sexual harassment and sexual abuse. I've experienced them both, and I've healed from them. So when people were posting their Me Too posts on Facebook, I was like, me too, and now what are we gonna do about it? And then like the next day, this went on for like a week, and then the next day, I was like, me too. And I'm reflecting on all the times, in my life where I was sexually harassed. I was stalked as well for like a year and a half. Some guy would follow me every time I walked my dog. I've experienced pretty much the whole range of sexual harassment. And So I don't take it lightly, but I was reflecting on the times in my life when that happened was when I had not healed from my sexual abuse as a child, and also I was still I still objectified myself, and so I was wanting that attention, unconsciously. I wasn't saying that any women who are sexually harassed, it was their fault. It's not your fault at all. But in reflection, I saw, because I was objectifying myself and I had not restored my personal boundaries from when they were violated as a child, I had really poor personal boundaries, and I actually didn't stand up for myself either. So I posted on Facebook that I was like, me too. And I remember all the times I was harassed, and actually when it stopped was when I learned about personal boundaries. And I got a whole range of comments on that comment, from totally get it, personal boundaries is so important, with agreeance, to people were attacking me. A lot of women were coming from more of a victim place, were attacking me and saying that I was saying that women and children that were abused, that it was their fault, and that's not at all what I was saying. So it just triggered, obviously, their own victimization, instead of seeing how what my truth is, and that I said I was this and I did this and then it stopped. Instead of listening to that, they attacked me. So I lost some people, even Facebook friends as well, by speaking my truth. So that goes back to, when you speak your truth and someone's not ready to hear it, there's projections. So I think that is good for today. I really would love, I love triggers so much. It's what I work with my clients most frequently, is when they call me when they're triggered, or there's a pattern, or there's a symptom, or cravings, or strong emotional reactions. So that's the way into the unconscious. Symptoms and triggers are a gift. And just to summarize that again, and say it in a little different way, we have such strong protections and defenses to not feel our pain, especially as children, that we don't even know what has hurt us, but the triggers are the way in. And oftentimes we know what hurt us, but the trigger is pointing to something that we still need to feel and express, and maybe a pattern that's still happening that we need to stand up for ourselves and create stronger boundaries, or ask for what we need. So again, check out my trigger workshop. I'll put the link below, and triggers can make you happy. Thanks for watching. Sending you all lots of love and empowerment with your triggers. Bye.